So I watch a lot of YouTube videos and I see a ton of videos of people who are thinking about quitting their job or they've already quit. And if you're one of those folks, before you do anything drastic, just take a moment and listen to what I have to say. Hey, I'm Will Martin. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I've been in emergency medicine as an NP for about 27 years. I've been an RN for 33 years altogether. And here's something that I was told by a mentor very early in my career. She said, Will, don't ever stay in a job more than 5 years. And I thought at the time, and this is way, way back, I thought, well, that's really odd because I was raised to be loyal to an employer. You know, if an employer employs you, you've got to show loyalty in return and you don't hop around. And again, I was also taught that if you hopped around from job to job to job, that it reflected poorly on you, that, you know, maybe you were hard to get along with or hard to please, or you couldn't focus, or maybe there was disciplinary problems, whatever. If I saw a resume of somebody who had had, 10 different positions in 11 years, you would tend to think that there must be a problem there. But as the years have gone on, and as I've gotten into a position where I hire people and I review CVs and resumes, I notice something that people do tend to hop around. They spend a year here, 18 months there, maybe 2 years in one position, but they don't really stay in one place for very long. And I've noticed that my colleagues that also interview people tend to feel that that's a positive thing. In fact, they'll say, hey, what do you think of so-and-so? He or she's got a lot of experience. Look at a year here, a year in ortho, and a year in neurology, and a year with this, and a year with that. And of course, my perspective has always been, well, why are you hopping around? What's the deal? But I've really had a change of heart with that. And I've also realized that thinking back to what this mentor of mine said years ago, don't stay in a position more than 5 years, it tends to make sense. My first job was an RN. I worked in the ICU. I was there for 6 years. At the end of 6 years, I had graduated with my NP. It was time to become a nurse practitioner. The hospital I was working in didn't really have a position that I wanted, and so I went to a different hospital. So there, I spent 6 years as an RN, but I moved on because my education changed. Then I worked, admittedly, for 2 years in an ICU as an NP, and then got an opportunity to work in the emergency department. So at that point, though, I spent 13 years with one employer and thought that, well, gee, I've been super loyal to this employer, and I was the chief of service, and I thought, well, this is great. Well, that employer got bought out by another hospital. That hospital came in and basically said to me, we don't really care that you've been here for 13 years. You're starting at ground zero with everybody else. There was a wake-up call. I had been at one place for 13 years, and it didn't really matter to this new employer. Fortunately, I got a phone call right about that same time saying, hey, when are you going to come work for us at the current employer where I'm at now? So things do work out for a reason. But it's really made me think that this whole idea of being loyal to an employer probably just doesn't pay off. And on top of that, I think it's good to have a lot of different types of experience. I've noticed that the NPs and the PAs that we hire in our emergency departments typically come with urgent care experience, ER experience, but also ortho experience, hospitalist experience, neurology in some cases. And they all have their strong points when they come work for us. And it's really valuable. And I don't have that type of experience. I've had to learn ortho the hard way and neurology the hard way. And I have, in essence, changed my mind. So here's what I'm getting at. If you're a nurse or a nurse practitioner or a PA, And if you're really fed up and you're thinking about quitting the profession altogether, before you do that, just go somewhere else. Just try something completely different. If you're an inpatient nurse, go to an outpatient setting. Take a 9 to 5 job for a while. Do something different. If you don't like it, either try something else or then maybe move on to a different career. But don't leave the business. You've put a lot of work in. You've put a lot of time and effort in your education. And I mean, it's obvious that healthcare is in need of nurses, right? So anything that you can do to make this fresh and new for you, I think is important. And if you have questions that maybe I can help answer, please leave some comments because, I think together we need to keep each other motivated, and that's hard to do. That's hard to do. Quick story before I sign off. Besides the emergency department, I also work in wound care and hyperbarics. And today I was sitting in our one-day surgery center because our wound care center is under construction. And there was someone who had received a procedure and got sedation. And apparently she didn't think she was going to get sedation. She had driven herself to the hospital and planned on driving herself home. Well, the nurses were saying, you cannot go home without a ride. I mean, you've had sedation and it's not safe for you to drive. And so this patient just was irate, screaming, yelling the F word, every other word. Now, working in the emergency department, that's normal for me. I mean, I hear that every 5 minutes. But these poor nurses working in this surgery center typically don't hear that kind of language, and they don't get those irate patients that often. And I felt so bad for these girls. I mean, these were all young nurses, and they were at the bedside trying their best to appease this patient and reassure her and still, try to keep her safe. This patient wasn't having anything to do with it, was just simply berating these nurses like crazy. And of course, nurses would leave the bedside, go around the corner, they would start crying. And I'm thinking, you wonder why people don't last in this business very long. I mean, either you have to have a very thick skin to begin with, or you have to have been in this long enough that you know that this is just part of the gig. This is just the way it goes. And it seems like there's more of those kinds of patients now than there ever used to be. I don't know what your thoughts are. I'd like to hear it. But anyway, if you're thinking of quitting, before you quit, think about just freshening it up. Go somewhere else. Try something else. And if that doesn't work, go to somewhere else. Nobody's going to think poorly of it anymore. There aren't people like me out there that are going to look at your CV and say, why the heck did she move around or he move around to 5 different jobs in 2 years? Not looked at that way anymore, and probably for good reason. So I'd like to hear what you think about that. And please, if you could, subscribe to the channel. And I guess a like button is important, so do that too if you don't mind. And again, please leave a comment because I'd like to talk to you about it. Have a good evening, and I'll talk to you again soon.